Hi, welcome to the Library Podcast. My name's Kim. This June, the Good Taste Book Club at the Marmora and Lake Public Library spent time with the work of novelist Patricia Highsmith. Highsmith made a name for herself in the American literary landscape with her psychological thrillers, perhaps most famously through her Talented Mr. Ripley series. Anne-Marie and Fred joined me to discuss Highsmith's work and a little bit about some of Highsmith's favorite foods. Today we're gathered to discuss the author Patricia Highsmith and her work, and I thought it would be great to start with just hearing a bit about your history with the author. Have you read her before this past month, and what was your introduction to her? Anne-Marie, would you like to start?
So I was not aware that I had been exposed to Patricia Highsmith insofar as watching The Talented Mr. Ripley and Carol, the movie. It was only after discovering those stories that I realized, oh, okay, I do kind of know this author in that sense. But before this past month, I had not actually read any of her novels, but I did end up reading 2 of them, but I'll talk about those later.
I also discovered her first through film, through Alfred Hitchcock's adaptation of her novel Strangers on a Train, which I loved. And then I read the book, and I loved her writing as well. It seemed so wonderfully matter of fact, but with a very slanted point of view about people and their proclivities to murder. So then, of course, the film The Talented Mr. Ripley. I have not read the series for that yet, but I am very eager to do so. Just recently, I read The Price of Salt, which was adapted into the movie Carol. And that was another really great read about 2 characters that I did not like at all, but the writing was so compelling. It just took me through to the end. Loved it.
The first book I read was Strangers on a Train, and I hadn't seen any of the film work from her adaptations. I just saw Virago Modern Classics. They had these like really beautiful hardbacks, and I picked up that one because I was just sort of trusting their taste, and I really loved it. I thought it had such a great momentum to it that it did make me want to read more. And I just find her a really interesting writer because you don't necessarily like her characters. Mm-hmm. And often it's hard to want to read a book when you don't like the characters, but she has this gift to make you want to keep reading. Yes. So for June, we all read some Patricia Highsmith. Anne-Marie, which book did you read?
For me, the first novel I picked up of hers was The Cry of the Owl, which sounded amazing, but I have to say that I did not enjoy it. I found that the characters did not feel real to me. I definitely did not care about them. The way they acted, the way they reacted, nothing made sense to me. And I do recognize, especially as I was reading it, I'm going, okay, this is a very stylized writing. This is, okay, I can see that she's going for something here, but for me, it just was a miss. And after I finished it, I did, look to see what other people thought of it. And I saw some critics who just raved about it and thought it was a masterpiece. And so obviously it's probably me. And I just didn't get it. But for anyone who wants to try it out there, it is considered a brilliant psychological thriller. So so I would love to know what you guys think. And then the second novel, I decided to read another one because I thought, oh dear, that one did not go over well. So I read The Price of Salt, even though I had already seen the movie Carol, but it had been a while ago, so I'd kind of forgotten some of the details. And as I was reading it, of course, I saw Cate Blanchett as Carol, because she was so amazing. Anyway, So I definitely cared about both of them. And as you mentioned earlier, Fred, that her characters tend to be unlikable. And yes, and I agree, they were both unlikable. I would definitely not want to be friends with either of them. But at the same time, I felt that there was enough vulnerability there that Patricia Highsmith included for me to really care about them and their relationship. I wanted to say that I really admired Patricia Highsmith's ability to take a very ordinary moment and make it really interesting. I thought that was great. And it was really obvious to me, too, that she definitely spent a lot of time watching people in real life from afar and imagining, like, what are they thinking, what are they feeling. And I was thinking that that was kind of like an ethical voyeurism, because of course we know about the rumors of her own perhaps unethical voyeurism that she has done. But and I just feel that through this ethical voyeurism, she definitely creates this unsettling vibe in the reader as you read what feels like a very normal event, but there's just these details that she includes, and you just feel like it just gets under your skin. Yeah, so I highly recommend The Price of Salt. But I did want to ask you both about the title, The Price of Salt, and what you think, why you think she named it The Price of Salt.
Never. I never really thought about it, but it is a kind of inexplicable title, isn't it? Although changing it to Carol for the movie doesn't really add much. It should be something more that reflects both the women. But I'm really vibing on unsettling. That is exactly the word I would use for her writing. It's matter of fact, but it's unsettling the way she writes, sometimes from the point of view of a killer, and with such a perfect logic to his thinking. But yeah, but why?
I remember when I was for the book club, I would interlibrary loan the books because we didn't have them, and I was wondering that The Price of Salt, where'd that come from? But I have no idea. And I do have to say it's my fault with the owl, because one of the reasons I interlibrary loaned that one was because I thought the title was good.
It is an amazing title. It looked like such a good book. Oh my goodness. But the Price of Salt, interestingly, that was the title when it was under her pseudonym when she published it. But when she put her name to it in 1990. She actually republished it under her own name, and she did change the title to Carol.
Oh, so that's why.
So she really wanted to separate herself from that, even from the title. All I can think of when I was just thinking of, I guess, like salt. You think of like the saltiness of life, like the good stuff, and then the price of salt. I guess it's the price we pay to get that good.
Right.
What are we willing to do to get that good?
Yes.
So, and I guess, well, I don't want to give it away in the book because, people will want to read it. But anyway, that's just what I was thinking. Yeah. What did you guys read?
Oh, Price of Salt was the one I most recently read. And yeah, as I was saying earlier, I don't like either of the characters. I think they're both quite selfish in their motivations. And then there's an uneasy power imbalance because Carol is older and rich, and Therese is sort of adrift, much younger. And it does feel sometimes like it veers towards the maternal, and which is kind of icky then when you realize they have a physical relationship later in the novel. But just it's so compelling to read, and you want to know what happens next, and you want to see how it all comes out. It does have a happy ending, which is, I don't know if that sits right with me, because I'm not sure those two women would have ended up together. They both have such sort of needs of their own. I don't think they could fulfill the others, not long term anyway. But of course, we don't know the long term. We just know how the novel ends. Yeah, but now I'm definitely going to have to read the Owl one, and of course the Ripley ones, because my only knowledge of those is from the film, which I did love, but I'm sure the novels have a lot more to them.
So I read The Talented Mr. Ripley because I kind of always knew I wanted to read that after reading Strangers on a Train, and this was a good way to force myself to do it. And I really enjoyed the book. I think Highsmith has a real talent for momentum in her novels, and Ripley is definitely one where the stakes just keep getting a bit higher as it goes on. And I think a lot of people probably know the basic outline of the story of the first Ripley book, and I only read the first one, so I don't really know how it continues. But it's a really, I would recommend it for a summer read if you want to escape but aren't able to, because for the first bit when she's writing about Italy, well, actually when she keeps writing about Italy, but when you do kind of like feel like you're there, and you can kind of have like a bit of a romantic vision of it that then is ended and turns violent, which just really, she kind of seduces you a bit with the location. Seduces you a bit to see things from Ripley's viewpoint. But one thing I find really interesting is that I have heard people say that you root for Ripley, but I never rooted for Ripley. And I find that fascinating that some people do fall under like seeing things from his perspective maybe a little bit, and then like, oh, I want him to get away with it. But I found it more that throughout it, there's these jarring moments in the beginning where the inner comments he'll have about other characters, you're just like, ooh, there's like such a harsh sharpness to him, and it's violent. Like his murders are intimate and violent, and so I personally didn't find myself rooting for him, but I was entranced by the narrative and the way it moved forward. And she just has a real gift for that, which I think there's a lot of writers who now write within the thriller genre that it just doesn't capture me at all. So I just feel that she's almost like an elevated writer within that big umbrella of thriller. Anyone else?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I remember reading that Patricia Highsmith, when she writes, she's writing the life she can't lead. Right. So people sort of took that as, oh, so you can't really murder anyone, so you're going to write about murdering someone.
Which is a very good way of working out your issues, I think. Just write them down. Yeah, I don't know. I reread a relatively recent article about her in the New Yorker, and I was surprised to hear that she was a real party girl in Manhattan to begin with. I'm not sure I get that vibe from her writing, but it was interesting.
Well, except for the drinking.
Oh, yeah. They all drink and smoke. Yes.
Constantly.
There's a lot of drinking.
Well, I think, though, in interview clips I've heard with her, and some people discussing who knew her, there was the facade she'd put on, but she feels like a difficult person to get close to. Oh, yes. And I feel that just only from the 2 books I've read of hers, that you think you're getting the interior life, but you're not. Yes. And that's kind of an amazing way to write, where you, as the reader, are like, oh, I'm getting this, I'm really trying to understand this character, and then suddenly you kind of hit a wall and you're like, no, wait, I'm not.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you with that. Yeah.
Ditto.
So, for those who may not have read Patricia Highsmith, I was trying to think of writers or styles where if someone liked it, like they came in and they returned a book to the library, let's say, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know what to read next." What would be something you think would be related to Patricia Highsmith that you might want to check out?
That's a difficult one because I mean I love a lot of the sort of noir novels of the 40s, you know, Raymond Chandler and all that, and then the kind of the British mystery or thriller writers, Niall Marsh and I don't know, maybe even Josephine Tay, but they're nothing like Patricia Highsmith. I mean, I know she was very well regarded in the UK, but I'm not seeing any overlaps.
Yeah, I think the only ones that come to mind, of course, are the new psychological thrillers that have been coming out ever since Gone Girl. But I think I know you've mentioned to me that they're considered more of a domestic thriller, so I think that is slightly different than what we see here. How about you? Can you think of any other books?
Yeah, I'm not well versed in the very popular ones now, because I don't find them as intriguing. Ooh, don't come for me. But I guess I would just hope that anyone who is interested just in a incredibly well written, strong momentum thriller, I hope you give Patricia Highsmith a chance. And yeah,
Yeah. No, definitely I'll go with that. No, I cannot think of any overlaps. I have not read many contemporary mystery or thriller writers. I mean, unless you consider P.D. James contemporary, but she's dead now, so not so contemporary. But yeah, that vibe is completely different. Yeah.
So I thought just for something fun at the end, I was just going to ask you both, what are you currently reading?
Oh, I'm reading H is for Hawk, and that was recommended by Kim here. Thank you very much, Kim. And I cannot remember the name of the author right now.
Helen MacDonald.
Thank you.
Well, I'm fulfilling my vow to read every book club book to the end, so I'm reading the Henna artist, excuse me, and the author's name escapes me as well, but it's very good so far. Enjoying it. Oh, sorry.
I'm reading a book called The Director, and I can't remember the author's name, but I'll put it in the show notes. It's a newer translated into English book that is from a German writer, and it's really interesting because it is a fictionalized telling of the director G.W. Pabst's life of him going back to Germany, and it has this interesting mix of true and fiction. So I'm enjoying it. It has short chapters too, which sometimes is like really nice in the summer because you can just bookmark done. Does anyone have any final thoughts on thrillers, killers, or Highsmith?
I think the main thing I just wanted to comment about Highsmith is we haven't talked about her love of animals and how she preferred, of course, the company of animals over humans. And she, of course, loved snails as one of those animals. And I started thinking about, of course, she loves snails because they hide away in the shell and only come out, you know, when it's dark and wet and mysterious and creepy. And I know she used to carry them in her bra, which I thought was awesome, and bring them to parties and things like that if she did go. And so that's just wild and crazy. But I just thought that was an interesting aspect. And the other thing I want to just comment on is her view of marriage, which I thought was really funny because I saw in an interview, she said that she just finds that whole idea of being married absolutely like horrendous. And she said she just couldn't imagine someone constantly asking her, "Are you hungry? Would you like something to eat?" She just thought that was the worst thing in the world. And then she said that she really could only write because she lived alone. I thought that was interesting too, where there was really no distractions other than her snails, I suppose.
I can't get over that idea of snails in a bra. It's really repellent. But you know what? That's how many of our characters are. They're repellent, but you still want to know what's going to happen next.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's go inside the shell
Yeah,
and
yeah.
look at the goo.
Exactly.
Yeah, good point. Look at us. So deep.
We haven't discussed yet our good taste event, where we tried to eat food that represents Patricia Highsmith, and she was apparently a big fan of cereal. So we all got together and ate sugar pops and frosted flakes and peanut butter. Yeah, okay. That's a very basic diet for somebody who lives alone. I'm glad she wasn't married because she probably wouldn't fed her family very well.
Well, what's interesting about her food is that for other people, she would want to present, like she would make fancy meals and dishes, but she personally just really loved cereal and peanut butter, and she supposedly carried it around with her a lot. So that's kind of fascinating. She'd have peanut butter and snails with her.
Yeah.
And I really think someone should make an illustrated portrait of her with like the peanut butter coming out of her purse, and then maybe like the snails crawling out of her blouse at the top. Yeah. So someone out there should do that. Well, thanks so much for joining me for this discussion of Patricia Highsmith. And when we return, we will be discussing healing fiction. That brings us to the end of this edition of the To the Library podcast. Thank you to Anne-Marie and Fred for joining me to discuss Patricia Highsmith. Some of the books mentioned in this podcast episode were Strangers on a Train, The Price of Salt, The Cry of the Owl, and The Talented Mr. Ripley, all by Patricia Highsmith. Also, American Psycho by Bret, Easton, Ellis, H is for Hawk by Helen MacDonald, The Henna Artist by Alka, Joshi, and The Director by Daniel Kehlmann. To the Library podcast is produced by the Marmora and Lake Public Library. Until next time, keep reading.